watching Gamer TV. Coming up, we go to LA to find out why the stars of the gaming world are getting movie-style agents.
They're blown away by the level of talent in the game industry.
We review Thief, Deadly Shadow, Shellshock, NARM 67, and World Championship Snooker. And we've got previews of Jack 3 and Second Sight. But first up, let's get the gaming headlines. Happy birthday, Quake! id Software's seminal first-person shooter has just turned 8. And with Wolfenstein 3D recently turning 12, it's a double celebration for developers id and the classics that have withstood the test of time. Congratulations! Some games don't even make it to their first birthday. Although in development for the past 2 years, Warhammer Online has been axed by developers Climax. The reason? Money, of course. With production costs spiralling, making a profit seemed impossible, so Online ended up offline. Nokia and Codemasters are planning a happy Christmas this year. The phone giants have announced plans to release Colin McRae Rally 2005 on the N-Gage just in time for the holiday season. How festive. News still to come. The US Army start their own studio and Nintendo set their sights on China. Stay tuned for more on today's top stories later in the show. I've always had this gift. If I concentrate hard enough and clear my mind of all worldly thoughts, I can see into the future of games. It's not ESP, it's Second Sight. As many a heavy drinker will tell you, there's nothing nice about waking up with no memory of who you are or the strange place you found yourself in.
Why can't I remember anything?
But that's the morning afterlight problem that will face the start of Second Sight, Codemasters' forthcoming stealthy console adventure. It's currently in production at the labs of acclaimed developer Free Radical, a team best known for their first-person shooter series Time Splitters. Free Radical's director David Doak tells us more.
The game tells the story of John Batic, who is a character who has become psychic. When you first meet him to play him, he's in this military medical facility where he's been locked up, and he's trying to escape from there. And as he escapes, he discovers that he has these very powerful psychic abilities.
What are you doing? Stop that! Hands on the floor!
Abilities that you'll be able to use to John's advantage as he struggles to piece things together.
As you go through, you learn how to do lots of cool things, so like telekinesis, a kind of astral projection where he steps outside his body. You can throw people around with the power of your mind. You can also use your mind to misdirect them so they can't see you.
What happened?
To make matters even more confusing, he'll be suffering from these funny turns.
Every time he's frustrated at his escape, he has a flashback which takes him to a place kind of 6 months before in time, where you see John Batic in a kind of like previous incarnation where he's no longer battered and beaten and has these psychic powers, but he's actually been co-opted onto this mission to go to Siberia to investigate whether psychic research is real or not. And as you play through the game, the flashbacks take you between the two narratives, the before and after. Once you started playing the game, you'll really want to know where it ends.
Winter Ice.
We're already intrigued, so when can we look forward to seeing the finished game?
We're hoping to have the game ready in September, so look out for it.
Every week there's a new story about games becoming films and films becoming games. But who are the guys who make this happen? We went to LA to meet the movers and shakers working behind the scenes to bring the industries together. Talent agencies have long dominated the film industry, bringing actors, directors and studios together. Now they're starting to do the same with the games industry. The appointment last year of Seamus Blackley, former Xbox Supremo and one of the games world's biggest hitters, to Creative Artists, one of Hollywood's biggest talent agencies, could see the two worlds heading for closer collaboration. Together with Larry Shapiro, he'll head up the agency's games division. The process by which games are made into films, and vice versa, looks set to move into a whole new league.
My role here at Creative Artists Agency is to work with the best talent in the video game industry and to protect them and give them space to make the most innovative and creative products that they can. When you look at the history of the video game industry, you can be fooled into thinking that it's a software industry. You can be fooled into thinking that it's a technology industry. And a lot of people still think about it this way. But in reality, it's an entertainment industry.
When you look at games, you're having a 20, 30-hour experience that has art, writing, music, characters, story.
One of the problems with bringing games to the big screen has been a lack of understanding of what games are all about.
When Seamus and I sit down with studio execs and network execs, we're not so much as explaining the industry to them, we're really showing them that here is an entertainment industry that's already there. When you look at the way audiences consume entertainment, they're not just sitting in front of their television, they're not just going to movies. They are playing it on game consoles, they are consuming entertainment on mobile phones, they're online. They like to use the characters the way they want to. And it's going to take a little bit for television executives and studio heads to understand that, because they're so used to putting it on the screen and protecting it.
Here's the great news. What if we do a game and a television show at the same time? Not license one from the other and force something into a box, but building off of one another, not just sort of pimping one out as a license.
Girly girl.
Who you calling girly?
One person who understood very early on the power of creating a strong brand that could work across a number of genres is Dave Perry. His company, Shiny, was behind such titles as Earthworm Jim.
It ended up becoming a toy line. We got a television show, comic books. I mean, we actually were making royalties off underpants. I mean, the fact is we made a property that wasn't just a video game, it was actually able to go outside and be other things too.
They went on to develop their next property, MDK, with a strong brand in mind.
I got another TV show deal, I got another toy deal, and I was like, this is just too easy. Why doesn't everybody do this?
Another company taking a similar approach towards licensing is Pandemic, the company behind such titles as Battlezone 2 and the highly anticipated Full Spectrum Warrior. They're getting the studios on board from day one.
At the very beginning now, we're trying to bring on a heavy hitter writer from the film industry at the very beginning of our process as we're developing the storyline and the characters and just the overall franchise.
There is one vital ingredient if a game's to work in other genres, as cult game designer American McGee explains.
I think no matter what it is, be it a toy or a book or a film or a game, at its core, it's important that it be a good story with good characters in an interesting environment.
Two of his twisted takes on children's classics, Alice and Oz, are heading for the big screen.
The chances of Alice being made into a film are pretty good. It just changed studios.
He retains an executive producer credit on Oz, which has been optioned by Jerry Bruckheimer, while for his next venture, Grimm, he'll have an even greater input.
I'm going to write the screenplay, and from the beginning it has been envisioned as a film as much as a game. Both industries, I think, feel that the grass is greener on the other side, and both are wrong. There will come a point, I think, when someone will stand up and manage to successfully combine the skills of a good game developer with the skills of a company like Pixar, and surprise everyone, and change radically what people's understanding of a production studio is.
We'll have more from LA after the break, but it's review time now. We've got a tour of Nam and World Championship Snooker still to come. But first up, it's Thief, Deadly Shadow.
It's out.
You'd never think a game littered with long stretches of silence would be exciting, would you? Well, you probably wouldn't think a game that glamorises murder and nicking stuff would be this funny either.
That's just great.
Eidos's pet cat burglar, Garrett, has returned in Thief, Deadly Shadows, and it turns out to be something of a quiet triumph. The premise remains mostly unchanged. Garrett sneaks about, spies and picks locks. What is new is a third-person perspective, as well as graphics so pretty it's a genuine shame to turn out the lights. Our anti-hero has a formidable medieval arsenal. There are water arrows to snuff out lights.
What could have made that noise?
There are fizzing noisemaker arrows, perfect for a quick diversion. And don't forget to play an occasional blinder with those flash bombs.
Can't see!
There's still room for old-fashioned combat, of course, and this is where most of the big laughs are to be found.
Oh, look at all the blood.
Lockpicking's a giggle, and the game uses controller vibration to let you know when you found the sweet spot of each lock. Crime never really pays, however, and there's a fairly good chance that Garrett will end up in jail at some point or other.
Let you live, so there could be a public execution.
This won't stop him for long. He can scoop the keys right off the guard's belt.
I'm telling on you.
Deadly Shadows is a great title, witty, stylish and entertaining. You can put your guns away now. It turns out that silence is golden after all. We'll give it 4 stars.
There may be a fat bonus.
Still to come on Gamer TV, we go back to LA to rejoin the gamers changing Hollywood. And we get an early look at the mighty Jack 3. Don't go away now. Welcome back to Gamer TV. First up, here's more on today's top stories. America's Army began as an interactive recruitment advertisement in 2002, but has since developed into a lucrative partnership with gaming giants Ubisoft. Now the US Army is opening its own game development studio called the America's Army Government Applications Office.
Great job, soldier.
Catchy.
You're trained and ready as an individual.
The studio's developing training simulations for the Navy and the Secret Service, as well as working on the newest edition of America's Army, Overmatch, which is due for release next spring.
Soldier, here's your ammunition. Now move out and enter firing point number 9.
The big boys of games have always ignored the Chinese market due to fears over piracy, but Nintendo are planning to change all that. They've devised a low-cost controller-styled games console called iQ, which roughly translates as God's toy. Nintendo hope that the inexpensive range of highly protected classic titles from the N64 and the SNES will finally convert the Chinese to the Church of Nintendo. More reviews now. In just a minute, we'll show you World Championship Snooker, but not before we put you draft dodgers through your paces with Shellshock NARM 67. There's something slightly questionable about Vietnam War games. Taking on Space Marines or bristling aliens, you can blast indiscriminately without ever questioning the morality of your missions. This is something quite different. Shellshock NARM 67 is possibly one of the most harrowing action titles we've ever played. It all starts reasonably enough. A spot of target practice, a chopper ride or two. It's then that your innocence is wiped away and you're left with public executions, the murder of civilians, and the sight of brothers in arms being literally blown away.
I won't give him that satisfaction. I'd do it for you.
Sadly accurate, and if the makers of NARM 67 wanted to promote the idea of war as hell, they've done an excellent job. Some of the maps even look like hell. As for the game itself, it's well crafted. Enemy AI, however, is a little shaky, and we move from VC soldiers constantly looking the other way to seemingly bulletproof enemy generals. The settings of each mission are beautifully realised, with misty night locations contrasting with innocent-looking villages and farms.
Locate the radio and generator. Destroy them both.
There are some neat ideas too, particularly the booby traps that you have to disarm with a precise series of button presses.
Good work. Let's move up.
For a fairly standard mission-based shooter, this is strong stuff and definitely not for everybody. If you think you can stomach it, however, a satisfying and detailed experience awaits you. We'll give it 3 stars. Just don't say we didn't warn you. After the hell of war, what could be more relaxing than a nice frame of snooker?
It's time to welcome the players.
While it's not the most extreme or athletic sport in the world, snooker has legions of devoted followers who want to recreate that edge-of-seat excitement at home on their consoles or PCs. Let's face it, you need a pretty big place to fit in a 12 feet by 6 foot table. So Codemasters reliably bring us an annual update to their long-running Q Sport franchise. This year, unsurprisingly, it's World Championship Snooker 2004.
Good break.
This latest incarnation is the most realistic, with developers Blade Interactive going to town on the visuals. The 30 Pro player models have now lost their blocky appearance and feature improved motion-captured animation for an altogether smoother trip around the table. Your opponents don't just look better either, they think better, with refined AI in effect.
What a shot. Let's look at it again.
All the current professional tournaments are included, along with John Virgo's trick shot challenges and 8 and 9 ball pool. This time there's also the nostalgic option to reenact classic match scenarios from the annals of snooker history. But the best improvement for this version has to be the inclusion of online competitive play for all platforms, which helps World Championship Snooker 2004 to achieve a near maximum break of 4 stars.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner and world champion for the 15th time is Joe Davis.
With the power of the Creative Artists Agency behind them and a bucket full of ideas, top game producers are beginning their assault on Hollywood. The question is now, is Hollywood ready for them? Some of the most powerful people in Hollywood are starting to realise there's a huge amount of talent working in the games industry. The way the two industries work with each other is starting to change. Or is it? Not everyone is convinced.
The current Hollywood way of thinking is that not that many people play games. I'm serious. That games are something to be thought of secondarily. That they don't understand how games get financed or made. They don't understand pretty much anything about games.
That's it, I'm out of here.
The results speak for themselves.
We'd like games to become great movies that become blockbusters. Until that happens, it seems to happen the other way.
It took the film industry about 50 years to get to where it is today. Whereas with games, we're a relatively young industry, and the great thing is that we don't follow any rules. We break all the rules. We're like the Wild West right now. Video games, we're like, screw it. We're doing whatever the hell we want, and which is really cool.
They're blown away by the level of talent in the game industry. And the people in the game industry we bring to them are blown away by them. I mean, these are the very best people in the world of television and film, writers, directors, actors. But fundamentally, if you're a person who can bring an incredible creative vision to life, an incredible movie to life, then you actually have a lot in common with somebody who can, work with 60 animators and programmers and designers and writers and et cetera, and manage the publisher and get it all happening.
And there's other parallels.
The game publishers, to a certain degree, are very modeled right now after the studios of the 30s and 40s in Hollywood. They had all the creatives under contract. The reason why the agencies are getting into the video game industry is to make sure that the creators of these games are seen as the stars, are seen as the most important part of the franchise themselves.
Which is exactly where a company like CAA comes in.
Part of the role of the agent is to bring and expose those great creatives to the studios and networks. They're calling us, who is the next big star? Who is the next great writer? Help us.
One great talent in the industry is the brains behind Oddworld and Munch's Odyssey, Lorne Lanning.
An agent working with Lorne Lanning will introduce the studio executives to the greatest talent out there. So when you look at the characters that Lorne creates, here is the next George Lucas. Lorne can create franchises, so many different franchises with the same visual signature that when you see it, you absolutely know what it is. You absolutely know that that's a Lorne Lanning production.
Games are really going to become something special, and the people who know how to do that are going to become incredibly important, and we're obviously trying to accelerate that as fast as we can.
If I had a choice between doing the next big Hollywood film or doing the next big video game, I would take the video game in a heartbeat, in a second. What's funny is all of the Hollywood guys who are working on movies are trying to get into the video game industry now, you know, and it's kind of come full circle.
Slowly but surely, attitudes in Hollywood are starting to change, with or without the help of agencies. But CAA is making sure that it's instrumental in getting some of the deals off the ground.
The thing that every audience wants, whether it's a motion picture audience or a music audience or a television audience or a game audience, is new content. They want to see new things that surprise them, new, more entertaining stuff.
You're starting to see the film industry really take a second look at new and original game intellectual properties. So I think they're starting to take it a lot more seriously. You know, it's about time they wake up, obviously, because before we know it, before they know it, we're going to be overtaking them.
Up next, we've got an early first look at the next instalment of one of gaming's great double acts. Jak and Daxter are back in Jak 3. One day, consoles will have graphics that are better than reality. They'll be able to cook the dinner, brush the dog, and transform into robots. One thing, however, that will never change is the platform game. Or will it? The third instalment in Naughty Dog's Jak and Daxter series is on its way, and already it's looking very ambitious indeed, even if that ambition seems to take the form of picnicking with lizards. At this year's E3, Sony pronounced the game to be 70% complete, yet only a few minutes of footage was available. We thought you'd like to see it, so here it is. Jak 3 is certainly going to be varied, and as you can see, virtually all gaming genres are going to be represented in the finished product. As for storyline, a year's passed since Jak and Daxter saved Haven City, but now his dark powers have brought him into disrepute. We can see why. They're getting kind of freaky, aren't they? This is Light Jak, his new angelic counterpart. For a PlayStation 2 title, the visuals you can see here are pretty phenomenal. Whether this is the result of promotional tape tinkering or not, we're not sure, but it's still a safe bet that this latest Jak tale will beat its predecessors hands down in the graphics department. We can't wait for Naughty Dog to finish the remaining 30% of this game and get it out onto the streets. Before it arrives in the autumn, rest assured, you'll have heard our opinions. And that's all we've got time for on Gamer TV. See you next time.